Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar Maximizing Human-Centric Innovation from Insights to Action. My name is Chris Robinson. I'm a Senior Director here at Lux, and I'll be moderating today's session. Presenting today is my colleague, Anthony Schiavo, Senior Director and Principal Analyst here at Lux. Throughout the webinar, you can type any questions you have in the questions box on your screen. Time permitting, we'll answer all the questions that we can. If your question does not get answered, please don't hesitate to email it to questions@luxresearchinc.com, and we'll make sure to respond. And lastly, if at any point you experience technical difficulties, such as a frozen screen, simply refresh your browser and just make sure that your internet connection is strong. And now let's jump into the presentation. Over to you, Anthony.
Thanks so much, Chris. And thank you all for joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about human-centric innovation, what it is, and how you can use it in your own innovation journey. So we'll start with a discussion of, really what it means to do human-centric innovation, as well as some of the pressures that innovators are facing today. Then we'll dig into the Lux Innovation Model and demonstrate where in that innovation process human-centric approaches can have the most impact. And we're going to apply these approaches to a key question, which is data center energy. This is something we get asked about all the time. Chris has been talking about it pretty much constantly. And it's a very technical question, which is why I think it's such an interesting one to apply human-centric framework to. So let's get started then with a bit of a discussion about what innovators are facing today. And at Lux, we're calling this the Jenga era of innovation, because when we talk to our clients and to other innovators in the field, the sense we get is that they're being asked to do their job while the Jenga bricks are being pulled out from underneath them. Whether that's in reduced budgets, pressure on profitability, reduced money in the space, or shorter timelines, it's just getting more and more challenging for these innovators to do their job. But the expectations are not changing. You can see this in VC funding, right? Globally, clean tech VC funding is down substantially from a peak in the 2021-2022 timeframe. There's increasing fears of a white-collar recession. And even if you think that the peak in 2021-2022 was unsustainable in terms of funding, all those billions of dollars leaving the space does make it harder for companies to scale, to develop new products, and to meet their goals. And it means that corporate innovators have to work harder and have to think more carefully about the companies they're going to support. At the same time, there's been major funding cuts to U.S. research. This is happening all across America, and it's happening in both academic setting, in national labs, even in some of the government organizations like the NSF. And I picked this example from Texas because we were there a few weeks ago for our forum, but the Harris County is actually suing Trump over these funding cuts. And it just highlights that a lot of uncertainty is really prevalent in the research in the early R&D space. And this era of uncertainty is definitely percolating to the broader economy. A few weeks ago, we had the tariffs being imposed. That kicked off a whole round of back and forth threats and retaliations. It's still not clear to us how that's going to play out, of course, but it's, I think, absolutely certain that this creates an environment of uncertainty, right? It's very difficult to commit to any one innovation project. And we've heard from clients that it's even difficult to just cut through the noise and talk to senior executives about anything other than tariffs. However, it may be easy to blame Trump for some of these challenges, but I think that this shift, towards a more challenging innovation environment definitely happened before the election of Donald Trump. In the 2024 CEO Priorities Survey from Deloitte, they highlighted that business growth was really emerging as a top priority, and it's really near-term business growth. And issues like business transformation, advanced technology, climate and sustainability, these long-term challenges were less of a priority. And again, this is before the election. So it's part of a broader shift that we're seeing. And what this means is that innovation teams are under more pressure than ever. They're being asked to do more with less. They're being asked to do it more quickly. And we really see this in three major challenges, right? First, the time is being compressed, right? I mentioned this, but 2 years or less, 1 year or less, innovation teams are really under the gun to demonstrate ROI and to demonstrate results. And that means that, the maybe 3 to 5 year timelines that used to be common in innovation just aren't as acceptable anymore. Secondly, priorities are really changing quickly, and this is making it very difficult to build consensus. Of course, tariffs are the most obvious example of this, where all of a sudden it was all anyone could talk about. But, these issues are continuing to crop up. And it just makes it challenging for innovators to do their job and commit to projects. And then lastly, even in those cases where there are existing projects that have been committed to, these social and political changes are disrupting them, whether it's changes at the federal government level, changes in community relations. Just because you've committed to scaling up a project doesn't mean that it's a sure thing. So with all these pressures in mind, let's get into the human-centric innovation and the Lux Innovation Model. So human-centric innovation, what is it? I've used this term a few times. It's a model that combines the technical innovation processes and the business innovation processes with an analysis that's rooted in understanding human needs, human behaviors, and human aspirations. Essentially, it's a combination of the technical and the cultural. And we really see it as crucial, even in relatively technical examples, because these human factors can sync technically sound projects. And a great example of this is Loudoun County, Virginia. This is right near where I grew up, so it's quite a personal story for me. But in Loudoun County, you may know it as Data Center Alley. This is the county with the single highest concentration of data centers in America. It's got more data centers than most states. And in Loudoun County, every dollar that the county spends on data centers generates $26 in tax revenue. It's an insanely good situation for the county. And it's the result of focused policy. In the mid-2000s, they set out to make Loudoun County very friendly to data centers. And yet, just last month, the Loudoun County Board voted to eliminate by right zoning laws. These were the zoning laws that allowed almost all the data centers in Loudoun County to get built. This puts a huge burden and a huge barrier up to further construction of data centers. Why would they do this, right? This is really, the goose that laid the golden egg here in terms of tax revenues. It's a core of the economy. What happened? Well, it's community resistance, right? There's a great white paper from the supervisor, Mike Turner, really digging into this issue. But community resistance has really started, especially in 2023. Part of this was around the transmission lines that were going to need to be built, the grid, in order to support the increased power consumption of these data centers, was just going to require more transmission. And these transmission lines were going to run along a main road and be quite visible to the community. And this prompted a lot of concern. And this is, not the only concern. Complaints about property prices, about noise, about construction have been growing for a while. And they finally bubbled over into this community backlash and ultimately into a new piece of policy. So let's take this as our innovation challenge, right? Data center energy. Let's apply some of the human-centric approaches to this challenge, because I think it's possible to solve some of these issues of community backlash with technical tools and technical innovation, but you need a human-centric approach in order to do that. So this is our Lux Innovation Model. It is based on a stage gate type of process, and it should look familiar to many of you in the room. But it is, this is how we fit our tools into that. So I want to first start with this first decision gate, which is where we're just deciding, is there an innovation opportunity at all? Is it viable? And there's a couple tools we use in this one. The first, inquiry discussion with our analysts. It's part of what we do at every step of the process. I'll talk about it in more detail a little bit later, but it's crucial across the whole scope of our work. And then specifically to this first innovation opportunity is our Lux Innovation Radar and our Lux rubric. We also use Luxer and research reports. These are really the core of the tools that we use here. So let's step into all of these as we think about this first stage in the innovation journey. First, the Lux rubric. What is it? It's our way of identifying which technologies we even want to cover. Lux, we don't have infinite bandwidth. We don't have unlimited numbers of analysts. We can't cover everything. We need to prioritize. And by analyzing all these different technologies, we identify which ones we want to prioritize. And we think about this in two ways. The first is innovation prowess. All of the technologies that we want to cover, they need to be novel, they need to have disruptive potential, but they also need to have a clear sustainability promise, a clear opportunity to improve the sustainable outcomes and drive us towards a more sustainable economy. And secondly, we look at market momentum, including both the interest of our clients and innovation activity. And then we take all these tools and we put them in our Lux Innovation Radar. This is essentially a list of technologies, and we rank them in terms of innovation prowess and in terms of market momentum, as well as urgency. And this is something that my colleague Chris, who's moderating this webinar, actually just went through and updated within the last month. And he put out a really great report highlighting all the different changes, what's moving up, what's moving down. But this is crucial as our clients think about the innovation problems at the very earliest stages, the very earliest brainstorming. They can use this list to understand what technologies are out there and where they can go from here. And then as they're getting more familiar, they can use Luxer. Luxer is our virtual research assistant. It's an AI tool, and it draws on our proprietary database of written research in order to answer your questions quickly. You can ask it any question you would like, and perhaps we'll ask it about data center energy and the power, the opportunity to power them. And what makes Luxer so great is not only does it answer your question quickly and immediately, but it also cites its sources, right? And in this case, we've cited to this report that my colleagues, Kartik and Anirudh, worked on data center energy consumption. What you can see here from this report is that we are predicting that data center energy consumption is likely to grow, and not just in the US, but globally, in the EU and China as well. And they've also done a lot of really good work identifying that there's a pretty wide range of different technologies to power those data centers that are potentially viable. Of course, natural gas, solar, and wind, but also potentially some fuel cell applications, some geothermal technologies that, with a little bit of innovation, might be cost competitive. And in the very long term, potentially technologies like nuclear or even hydrogen fuel cells. So returning to this first Lux Innovation Model, we can see that when we think about the innovation opportunity, are there technologies out there? Is this innovation opportunity viable? I think the answer is yes. We've identified there's a number of technologies. We've looked at the radar. We've talked to Luxer. We've gotten a quick scan of the research that's available. And we found the right report very quickly that shows us that this is a growing opportunity and there's a wide range of potential technologies. So again, with these tools, the goal is to really accelerate your journey, to be able to walk through the first steps of these decision gates as quickly as possible, because we know that innovators are under pressure. So with that, let's move to the second decision gate. We need to determine now if this is a sound investment and if this is really something that we as an organization are going to commit to. Is this something that is right for us, not just a good opportunity in general? For that, again, we turn to inquiry. Talking to our analysts is the core of what it's one of the core ways that we provide value here at Lux. And of course, it's going to be crucial throughout the entire stage of the innovation journey. We also use our Lux lists here, which is a powerful tool to help identify the right companies, the right partners. And then to evaluate those companies, we have our innovator assessments. These are proprietary primary research-based evaluations of early-stage innovators. And lastly, we can turn to our virtual anthropologist. This is really crucial, and I think this is one of the things that truly makes Lux stand out, is this ability to think about the consumer concerns at a very early stage. So let's leverage these tools. And now I want to talk a bit more about inquiry, right? At Lux, we have about 90% of our analysts having advanced degrees, masters and PhDs in science, engineering, or business. I think our history, we've really taken scientists and turned them into business analysts. And our advisory members have unlimited access to these analyst conversations. We really want our advisory members to think of these analysts as extensions of their team. And when they use our service as well, I think they can really act in that way. Analyst inquiry can be a comprehensive discussion, going over a report in a really detailed, technical, and quite structured way. It can be a brainstorm, right? It can be something that's totally loose and unstructured. It can be a simple question, right? Or it can be a long, in-depth conversation. What's important, though, is that we are trying to lower the barriers, right? We're trying to make it as easy as possible in order to get in touch with the analysts. And in doing so, we've added into Luxer, our virtual anthropologist, our virtual research assistant, we've added the ability to schedule a conversation with the analyst with one click. So you can go in, talk to our assistant, identify what topics you're interested in and what research, and make that decision very quickly. Is this something where I want to commit to an hour-long discussion with the analyst and move forward with confidence? But once you've talked to the analyst, you're probably also going to want to talk to some of the experts in the field, the CEOs, the leaders of these companies who are making these technologies work. Lux lists are our way of streamlining innovator mapping. The analysts have curated long lists of all the players, the relevant players in this particular technology area. And we have developed, using some AI tools, in addition to our primary research, comprehensive descriptions of all these different companies. So you can quickly identify which companies have the kind of solutions that I'm looking for. And then you can dig into these companies with innovator assessments. This is maybe the single oldest piece or the single most consistent piece of research we've been writing over the last 20 years. These are 3 to 5 page documents that both include the facts of what a company's technology, business strategy, and market and opportunities are and history, as well as a layer of our own analysis included in the Lux Take, as well as a scorecard that's consistent across every single startup and company we cover. And they're always built from proprietary primary research. We talk directly to the CEO or the other executives at the startup, and we really think of this as an extension of our network. So every week, we're making many introductions between our clients and these startups. Companies like Vire, which develops a high-temperature superconducting cable for overhead power transmission. It's an interesting company. I want to come back to it in a little bit. But before I do that, I want to touch on our virtual anthropologist. Our consumer insights group takes a huge amount of data, consumer conversations, long-form consumer conversations, really, not just tweets. Actually, we don't use tweets at all. And it processes that and applies an anthropological analytical framework to identify needs, help our clients validate solutions. And because we have these data tools, we can do re-evaluation and re-evolution of some of our concepts. So we've asked the virtual anthropologist, what are people's fears about data centers, right? And there's a number that have bubbled up to the surface, worries about energy efficiency, but really worries about energy consumption and data center dominance, and particularly the fear that AI is going to monopolize these resources. And what's so interesting about our AI anthropologist is that we can actually measure how common, how mature a belief is in this consumer ecosystem. So this is our maturity curve, which we use to measure that. And you can see here that for these data center energy challenges, we're in this zone of mainstream acceptance, and we're moving quite quickly. We're growing quite quickly into the zone of established ideas. So over the next 18 months, these concepts and these fears are going to become more and more consistent and more entrenched in the population. And so what that means is that when you think about the what happened in Loudoun County, this community pushback, right? It's easy, I think, to write these things off as the work of a single actor or the work of a single group of activists, right? But in reality, what this data is showing us is that these concerns are widespread, right? More than half the people, if you go out on the street, you know, 1 in 2 people you talk to is going to share these concerns. That's what the data is telling us. And I think that means that we really do need technical solutions for these, because just moving to another location is not going to ameliorate these issues. So coming back to this innovation model, we're through decision gate 1. We're now in decision gate 2. Is this a sound investment? Are there innovation roadmaps? And I think we've seen that we can build that innovation roadmap. We've identified there's a number of companies, a number of interesting technologies, whether that's in something like superconducting wires or some of the other technologies that are out there. But I think we've also recognized that there are some challenges, right? We need to ensure that we have technologies that are positioned to overcome these consumer concerns. Now, there's more stages in this process, handover, commercial release. We don't have time to get into them today. But just know that our expertise team is positioned to help support our clients with these stages. But coming back to this big picture question, I think it's crucial to recognize we really see human-centric innovation as the answer to these challenges that innovation teams are facing. If innovation teams are being asked to demonstrate results in 2 years or less, we're developing tools to help them move much more quickly at the early stages of the innovation funnel. Priorities are changing quickly, and that's making it difficult to build consensus. We're allowing our clients to more quickly validate their hypotheses, get in touch with the right innovators, and build that case for innovation. And as these social and political factors are becoming more and more important to existing and future innovation projects, we're digging deep into culture and meaning to give our clients the tools to understand those risks and prepare a technological solution. So, data center out. Now, we've talked about human-centric innovation. What are we going to do about our data center issue? How can this lead to better outcomes, right? We know already that community resistance is important and that it's beginning to derail the development of data centers. And that data center developers are going to be looking for solutions to these issues, right? As well as the utilities that support them. And we've seen from our virtual anthropologist, we know that this is not an issue of just a few NIMBYs or a few individuals in the community dragging their heels. This is really the case of a widespread belief among the population. And because of that, we're going to need technical solutions, right? Coming back to Wire, they claim that their superconducting wires have 5 times the transmission capacity of existing solutions. And what's more, that they can be put into the footprint of some of the established transmission infrastructure because they need, with that additional capacity, they need far less space to move the same amount of electricity. This company, in our profile, we gave them a wait and see. I think they're very promising or very high potential in terms of the technology. This ability to increase capacity is very exciting, but they're undeniably risky, right? They're undeniably a technology that's still relatively early stage and relatively unproven. I think they're the kind of technology that a lot of innovation teams would look at and say, well, it's interesting, but it's not proven enough. And the economics, the cost is potentially very high. So I don't know if it's worth investing in for us. But I think when you take a human-centric innovation lens, you can recognize that actually this technology is not just a nice to have. It's not just improving the performance of a system that already works. It's actually solving a key pain point. And it's something that could take data centers from not being built to being built, right? It's something that's truly transformative when it comes to that capacity to build data centers. And so that's what taking a human-centric innovation lens does. It allows you to reevaluate these technologies in light of the broader shifts in the human population and shifts in consensus and understanding. And that changes which technologies you value. So I just want to leave you with a few final thoughts. One is that human-centric innovation is key for innovation teams, even in B2B industries, right? I think consumer-facing industries, packaging, food, apparel are maybe well aware of this, right? They're a little bit more comfortable, but we think it's crucial for everyone, even companies who are very far away in the value chain from the end consumer. They need to recognize that these challenges will have, and these consumer shifts in understanding will have important ripple effects that need to be solved for, even by B2B companies. Secondly, we really see innovation teams as being challenged to adopt new skills and new capabilities quickly, right? These old skills of science and economics, they're important, but they're no longer sufficient. You need to be able to convince, frankly, a very skeptical public that your technology really will improve the world. And you need to navigate this complex regulatory and political environment. And lastly, innovation fails for human reasons, not technical reasons. There are many, many sound investments out there that have real challenges, and innovation teams can ultimately be blindsided by these challenges if they don't have the right framework for evaluating them at an early stage. So I would encourage you, as you think about your long-term innovation process, really think about where can human-centric innovation fit within this. And with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your time and for your attention. And now we'll open it up for questions. Chris?
Yeah, excellent. And thank you, Anthony. So as noted, we'll be taking some questions you might have in the presentation. As a reminder, you can drop those into the questions box on your screen. And if we don't get to your question, someone from Lux will be in touch after the webinar. So I see a couple of questions coming in. We'll start with maybe the broadest one, which is, how did we go about creating this kind of innovation model?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think in a lot of ways it really evolved organically. We've been working with innovation teams and innovation groups for the last 20 years. And, a lot of these are based on practices we've talked to with our clients and practices we talked to with startups. But I think the thing I would really emphasize is a few years ago, or really, I should say about a year ago, we really sat down and thought structurally about how do our clients use our tools and how do our clients most benefit from them. And, I think it's also come from our own internal collaborations, right? I know I've written research with our consumer team, our anthropology team. I've had questions for them that they have really been powerful in helping me answer in my own research. So as we brought these capabilities together, we recognized both in our work with our clients and our work internally that it could be really powerful in combination. And so we sat down, about a year ago to really put these together into a framework. But a lot of these tools and individual pieces are 15 years old, right? Something like the profile, it's something we've been doing the innovator assessment, it's something we've been doing for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that you touched upon a few times looking at VARE, for example, but can you share examples of the framework in action or talk about, how we use the framework with some of our clients as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of, you can really see it most clearly in action in areas like packaging or like apparel, where there is, there are these very real consumer concerns that face our customers and that have this strong technical sort of overlap. So my colleague Matilda has done a really interesting job evaluating different packaging types and architectures and actually talking about, hey, how do you actually implement something like reusable packaging? What are the consumer fears there? Like, hey, are they concerned about these packages being clean? Are they concerned about these packages being like safe or wearing out, things like that? Really digging into some of the sentiment there. And then connecting that directly to, okay, well, if cleanliness is an issue, you need coatings or you need, cleaning systems, or you need some way to make that visible to the customer. It can't just be an invisible technology solution. It has to be something visible and made marketed to the customer. So we've worked with a number of our clients in those areas there. And even like honestly, we've answered questions around, carbon capture for very industrial upstream players, right? How do consumers think about this? How should we be presenting our carbon efforts, right? Um, there's real concerns about backlash or a failure of acceptance, right? We've seen that in carbon credits. So, I think it's most visible in these more consumer-facing areas, but we've definitely done this work on technologies that are quite industrial.
And I think we have time for one more question, a question we frequently get asked, but how has AI changed this process?
Oh yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, AI, it's a big deal, right? Um, of course, we're using AI. Actually, that's really insightful. I'm sure. Of course, we're using AI in some of these tools, right? AI is ultimately it's the technology that gives us the capability to analyze the consumer data and to accelerate our client's journey there, within within finding these startups and within finding these partners. I think what you're going to see in it is that AI tools, you're going to have kind of a split where on one hand, AI tools are going to really accelerate the information gathering and the data analysis parts of the innovation journey, right? Um, Things like market sizing. I think in the next couple of years, we're going to have really powerful tools for doing market sizing. Not necessarily even using AI in the forecasting, but just using AI to gather all the information you need to actually build a market size. Um, but at the same time, I think that as that becomes more common and more widespread, people are going to want that human connection as well. Um, the real differentiator, the thing that's going to make you sharper than your peers or more competitive or better able to tackle these issues is actually that connection you have and meeting the right people, right? In the same way that the pandemic kind of made it much more challenging to do, face-to-face interaction, and everyone had to figure out, okay, how do we connect with startups and innovators virtually? I think it'll be something similar where everyone says, okay, well, there's all this information out there that I can process, but how do I actually like create a connection and find the right company or partner to work with or to invest in? So it's going to make the analytical parts change a lot, but I think it's also going to really emphasize the human parts of it. And Lux, we're working on both of these elements, right? We're actually working to develop new AI tools with some of our clients, and we're actually also working to really entrench ourselves in those networks of partnerships and make those open to our clients as well.
Yeah, excellent. Well, very much. Thank you once again. That concludes our webinar for today. The slide presentation and recording from this webinar will be sent to all attendees via email shortly. After leaving the webinar, you'll be prompted to complete a survey in today's presentation. We do appreciate any feedback you might have. It helps inform and improve future webinars. So take a moment, check out some of our upcoming webinars. Thank you for joining us and have a great day.